Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Masks Off. I am Kim Gross, and today I have Meagan Duncan with me, and I'm really excited for this conversation. It's a little bit different conversation than normal, but yet still similar. We're going to talk about masks, we're going to talk about perfectionism, but we're going to talk a little bit more today from the lens of parenting. And I love this topic. It's near and dear to my heart. But as always, I will begin with the quote that Meagan gave for us, which is, let us become curious so we can actively model turning oopsies into opportunities to enhance our 3 C's, our communication, cooperation, and connection with our children. Oh my God, Meagan, this is like such an amazing quote. So tell us, what does this quote mean to you?
Well, thank you for the introduction and thank you for having me here. So I am a foster mom. I have bio kids, and I've had a preschool in my home. Like, I have always served children, and I've done in-home therapies for speech therapy. And so what I have learned over the years is if we can embrace our own mistakes and just in this lighthearted way, turn these oopsies into opportunities to model repair. And, oh, I dropped an egg. No big deal. Will you help me clean it up? Will you grab a dustpan? Like, we can just embrace these mistakes as opportunities to connect with our kids. And when they make a mistake too, we don't have to disconnect. We can use that as an opportunity to connect. And that's where the 3 C's come in, that quality communication, which gets cooperation, which deepens and keeps that connection together.
I love that. That's so awesome and so important. So you started to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. You said you're a foster mom and you work with kids. Do you want to share anything else with us about what you do, who you serve, and how you do it?
Yeah, so my most profound experience was having a preschool childcare in my home. And I recommend everyone do that because it was the hardest, most amazing experience having 6, 3, and 4-year-olds in your house. And you have to figure out very quickly how to get these kids to cooperate and communicate and connect with each other, to want to do that and to want to do that with me. We
Yeah.
can treat our own kids kind of harshly and we can be kind of bossy and punitive. We can't do that with other people's children. And so
Mm.
they were a reflection to me where I needed to do my work. And I love that. And so I went back to my neurology degree and really a lot of research and discovering what kids need to want to communicate together. And so, yeah, preschool in my home, amazing experience. And then I did in-home therapies with 0 to 3 early intervention. And again, just helping parents and children communicate together, not only to help their development, but also just those 3 C's: communication, cooperation, and connection. And now I serve parents in a little different realm. I have an online coaching community, Connected Kids Thrive, and I am pulling all of these tools that I learned and helping families really rebuild the foundations of their family. And I really aim to serve our kiddos 0 to 6, getting those foundations in before school, before pressures of school, even preschool pressures of school, but definitely first grade, second grade, before it throws the family into chaos. Because if there's not a solid foundation, then those extra pressures just wreak havoc on the family unit.
Wow. I'm so impressed because that is so key, right? And so important to help the kids when they're that young and still so moldable. They're still like sponges and you can really make or break, so to speak. So again, this is Masks Off. We take off our masks, we get vulnerable. Are you open and willing to taking off your mask with us?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm curious then, because it's my belief that a lot has to do with how we are raised and how we are parented, along with society and along with schools and everything else, but a majority in the home growing up with caregivers that impacts and shapes the trajectory of how we end up being as adults.
Mhm.
So what was your story like? What masks maybe did you have to put on or wear when you were a kid and growing up? And how did all of that lead possibly to the work that you do today?
I grew up in a religious cult, and so it was very much kind of the same old-fashioned children are to be seen, not heard, do as I say, not as I do, blind obedience, all of those things. So definitely people pleasing. The old that's how you were valued, is by how pleasing you were to, the adults around you. And I love, excuse me, I love
Mhm.
this new parenting trend of becoming less punitive. I'll go this way. The less punitive, and where the pendulum is swinging from this harshness, right? And I know a lot of parents are afraid of becoming permissive. So it's this, but tools are right here in the middle. Those three C's: communication, cooperation, and connection. And um, it's been a journey for sure. And what I've discovered through my work in the parenting realm and is that parenting is like twofold. So on this side, you have the parent work that we have to do for ourselves. We have to reparent ourselves, learn our triggers, forgive ourselves, forgive our parents if we can, like they did the best they
Mhm.
could.
Yeah.
Um, I definitely choose to believe that. And then we have this side, and this is how we parent our children. So these are the skills we need to get to help them be their best selves. But what are we doing here to help us be our best selves? So that's really how I like to view parenting is, and that's why I'm not a parent coach. I'm a parenting coach because I honestly am still barely doing my work for myself on this side. I've got
Yep.
all the skills here to help parents help their children, talk in ways where their kids can listen, validate, and empathize, and choices, and all of those things that
Yeah.
our kids need to listen and cooperate. But the parent stuff, woof, and I don't even know which one's more important. I think they're
Yeah.
equally as important, but I'm not a parent coach because I'm just learning to reparent myself. So I'm a parenting coach because I'm super skilled in this way and I'm working on this. And I invite everyone to view it like that and
Yeah.
really analyze, how are you working on yourself and how are you working with your kids?
Okay, so I love that. So let's go to the side where you're working on yourself. So, and you said you're still in that space of working on reparenting yourself. What are some of the things, if you don't mind sharing, what patterns do you see that keep coming up that you have to work on to reparent yourself so that you can show up in a healthier way for your own kids?
What I've noticed is we as parents take things so personal. And
Mhm.
what our kids do, we take it as a personal reflection on us, whether they don't eat their broccoli. And then we can get into that habit of force feeding, and then punishing around food. And in my family, actually, my brothers were given swirlies for not eating their food. If you don't know
And
what that,
what are swirlies? Tell me what swirlies are.
where the adult in the room puts their head in a toilet
Mm,
because, and it's just control.
yeah,
Our older generation really felt that they needed to control and their kiddos and their grandkiddos. And what I have come to understand is the more control that we put on our kids, the less we are equipping them. What did
yeah,
my brothers learn from that? Lots of unintended consequences came from that. And so, that's just one thing that we as parents grade ourselves on, whether our kids eat or not.
yeah,
And we just take it so personal if our kid doesn't like the things we like, or yeah, we just take things so
yeah.
personal.
I just will share and add on one little bit about that because so before I started in on conscious parenting, maybe like 11 years ago. So right now my kids are 23 and 20. And so they were probably like 13 and 10 when I was introduced to conscious parenting. But before that, I was completely unconscious and unaware as a parent, which is why it's amazing the work that you're doing and any other person out there that is doing conscious parenting work or parent coaching, whatever it is, because it's so needed, right? You hear that cliche or that saying that there is no parenting book out there. There's no parenting book. Hopefully nowadays, maybe moving forward now, you will have some, type of book. But I just remember when my kids were little, and you're talking about the eating thing, that and how personally I took it because of the fact that I wore the perfection mask and everything had to be so freaking perfect. I had to be in control. Like you said, it was about control, but I needed like to follow all the books. So back then it was like, well, your kids have to eat your vegetables and they have to do this and they have to do that. So like every parenting book that I read was telling this like measure of where I needed to be as a parent and based upon what my kids were doing. So I didn't do swirlies, but I do remember one time. Oh my God, and it makes me still cringe inside. I do remember one time when my son was probably 2 or 3, because he was sitting in one of those little boosters that attach to the chair and with his little tray. And I think I must have had like broccoli on his tray or some kind of food that he didn't like. And I think I actually might have heard it like on Dr. Phil. This is why it's crazy, right? You hear something out there and then you think you have to do it in order to be like a good mom. So I said to him, I said, you're not going to get down or get out until you finish eating. Do you know that that little boy sat there for almost 2.5 hours? And do you know he still didn't eat it? And so what happened? I ended up giving in. Like, what did he learn and what did I teach him? Zero, except for like anything negative. Go ahead. You're running to say, go ahead, tell me. I know.
Yeah, no, thank you for that vulnerability because we've all done that. We've hands up here too. We've because it's the thing we think we should do. We never do anything out of malice, right? We're just trying our best, and that counts for all of it, right? But
Yeah.
um, you know, everything we do has a consequence, positive or negative. And a lot of things we don't think about are those negative unintended consequences. And that's where actually that's why punishments are just not effective because they don't teach us skill. So these habits for yourself and for your kiddos are going to repeat over and over and over. And not only does it just not teach a skill, it's inviting a lot of unintended negative consequences.
Yeah. I know. I know. I know. I know. So, here's the thing that we talked about before, and I think it's really important to call this out. Now, you just did name one thing. No parent out there is doing this like with malice, intended malice. They're not trying to screw their kids up in any way, shape, or form. So let's just say that first and foremost. But there are also lots of parents, and probably including myself at some point, that where I said, but I just love my kid so much. Like he knows that I love him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He knows that I love him, even though I made him sit there for 2 hours. And I think you would agree. And if we can talk about this for a little bit, because this may be a very polarizing kind of statement to say that love is not enough. Like just saying you love your kid and loving it is not enough.
Yes, 100%. But I want to back up for 2 seconds. You forcing your kiddo to eat broccoli and him sitting there for 2 hours. What I want us all to remember is our kiddos are extremely forgiving. They've
Yes.
already forgiving. They forgive us the minute it's over. And if we can
Yes.
forgive ourselves,
Yes.
then we can move because we don't move forward from shame
We
and
do
guilt.
not.
So if we do feel shame or guilt, what I do is I invite us to stay in that moment for 3 seconds and
Yeah.
then choose to be inspired and move forward.
Yeah.
So honor that feeling and then forgive ourselves, because our kids have already forgiven us. They forgive us
Yes.
all the time. And then if we can just forgive ourselves, then we can move forward in
Yes.
those next steps. But I just wanted to honor you for
Yeah,
a second.
totally. Love that. Love that.
And then love is not enough. Absolutely. It's a great starting place. It is why we do the work we do. It is why we choose to look in the mirror and ask, what can I do differently? It is why we self-reflect. But if we choose to let love be all there is, then we just stay there and we use it as a cop-out and an excuse not to grow.
Yes.
Someone a part of the foster world, with all the love, and I see a lot of parents. We all do foster work for out of love. That's the initial starting point, because who invites someone else's child into their home that's going to rip their home apart? Because that's what happens.
Yeah.
That's what happens. But you have to love this child, and you have to grow and get the training you need to serve them. And if you don't do that, that's not okay, and you're failing them. And at that point, loving them is just a cop out.
I totally agree. And I think that to just keep going with that, like to say that, oh, I just love my kid and not having the willingness or the desire to do the inner work, that part that you talked about on the hand, the reparenting part, because that reparenting part, unhooking from our own patterns from childhood, is not easy, right? That's why, like in my coaching, I teach the 5-step power pathway, and it's a program, it's a process for unhooking from the patterns that we developed as kids and that are keeping us stuck from moving forward in our lives, from doing the healing work, from embracing our own inner child, from reparenting our own inner child, so that we can show up more in wholeness. Because when we come from wholeness with our kids at whatever age they are, you're going to be able to have that deep, deep connection with the communication, the cooperation, the connection that you talk about. But it's a lot of work. It's hard work. It's hard work, although deep and lasting. But most people, parents, are unwilling or unable to do it. And that's why it's not okay to say, on the one hand, like one moment, I love my kid, or even say to your child, I love you, I love you. And then 5 minutes later, you're screaming and yelling at them because they just spilled milk in the kitchen and shaming them. It's hypocritical and contradictory, and it's very, very, very confusing to the child.
Yes. Because then they're learning, well, what is love?
Yeah.
Love is, yeah.
Love is conditioned. Love is if I'm pleasing, perfecting, and making mom and dad happy all the time. And I'm being so good that I'm not going to upset them. I don't want them to be angry at me. I don't want to be rejected. I don't want to be abandoned. And that's at the root of it. And as a child, the child doesn't understand that mom or dad is just acting out of unconscious behavior. The child really feels, if I act in this way, mom or dad may leave me, literally, and abandon me. That's how the child feels. So let's talk about what you do in the kitchen, because I think that it's great and amazing, and how that if a parent isn't even careful in something as maybe simple as being in the kitchen, like just going along with that whole train of thought that I was just talking about. So let's just say that you're making cookies in the kitchen, and we talked about this example before, and you're cooking with a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or whatever, 6-year-old, maybe even 13, I don't know. And you're making cookies and they happen to get eggshells in the bowl, in the batter. how would you demonstrate handling it in using 3 C's versus a parent who might handle it in a very unhealthy, unconscious way that could have a really negative effect on the child? How's that?
Yeah. So, okay, I do in my work, I promote parents inviting their kiddos in the kitchen because the kitchen is the perfect setting to those 3 C's: communicate, cooperate, and connect. And we want to think about our goals. If our mindset is, I got to get dinner on the table, I am super, super stressed, that is not the time to invite your kiddos in. Now, as you do this work, you can even be stressed and say, hey, will you peel a carrot? And they can do that, and you can still do your stuff, and it doesn't have to be this clash. Something that I teach is the poopy mindset. And that's the mindset
Tell
you need
us.
to when you invite your kiddos in the kitchen. So poopy. And I named it that because it brings a smile to our face. It takes us up here to curiosity. If we can function in curiosity, it will serve us very well. So poopy is, for the P, patient. We've got to decide we can be patient. Those 2 O's, oopsies into opportunities. So every oopsie is an opportunity to connect. It
Yep.
is as glorious, those eggshells in the pan, in the bowl, the cookies, the chocolate chips being splattered over the floor, the egg being dropped. Those are beautiful moments to capitalize on. Those are opportunities. If it went perfectly well, there's no opportunities there.
Yeah.
That's not what we want. We want those. And luckily, our kids are going to give us all kinds of opportunities to, those 3 C's: communicate, cooperate, and connect. Okay, so patient, oopsies into opportunities. And then the other P is playful. And if it's a yes to all of those, then you're in the right mindset. You're in a poopy mindset. And then you can be just present and let whatever mistakes happen be a part of the experience. Letting your kids know that mistakes are okay, that we don't need to have any bad feelings of mistakes. And we can model how to fix mistakes, how to take accountability, right? And then even better, helping our kiddos take accountability for their mistakes, but taking accountability for our mistakes. When I make a mistake, it's the coolest thing when my daughter says, oops, you're perfectly imperfect. It's okay, mommy. They learn
Gotta
that.
love it.
And they use it, my bio kiddos with my foster kiddos, they use it together. That high quality communication to keep cooperation, to deepen connection. So I personally, if there was an eggshell, my favorite strategy is an I notice or I wonder. So I actually very rarely tell my children to do anything. It's an I notice or I wonder, because the more we say and tell and do, the less they can think and do well for themselves. So I would just say, oh, if they didn't notice it, I would just say, oh, I noticed a little shell in there. And I would stop talking. There's nothing, they're not going to ignore it. They're going to be like, oh, and then I might offer, what do you want to try different next time? Or something,
Yeah.
just to connect and solve for that problem together.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Or like the next step might be like, just, okay, if they're not sure how to get it out, like if they're trying to get it out with their finger, which is one way, or you can offer, would you like me to show you how to get the eggshell out or something like that, which is completely different from a mom, a dad, or a caregiver saying, oh my God, why did you just did a horrible job cracking that egg. You're not supposed to get eggshells in there. What's wrong with you?
Yes, I know. And then they take it as they're unworthy, they can't do good enough. And honestly, when I'm cooking with my kiddos, which we do almost every day, we crack an egg into a clear glass bowl that we can look under before it ever goes into
In there. That's another great strategy. Yeah.
There's ways we can just eliminate a lot of friction and keep things successful. But what I love, what you just said, I would say, can I help you get that out? If I want my kiddos to say, hey, mommy, can I help you? I need to say it first. We need to model every behavior
Everything. Yeah.
for our kiddos to show and own.
Yeah, I love that. And just going back to like that example, and I know I was exaggerating a little bit, but I just really want to emphasize that some parents might think to themselves, well, yeah, they shouldn't be getting eggshells in there. Or like, what's the big deal if I yell at my kid for, getting eggshells in? Or what's the big deal if I make a comment about the cookies coming out burnt? Like, it's just cookies, it's just the kitchen. But I think what's important, and I think you know this, and anyone who's doing the conscious parenting work knows, like you just said, like, well, okay, first, then I would invite that parent, watch your child's body language after you've said that. If you see your child like go inward and cower or look away and look down, show any type of body language that they are feeling bad, that's a sure sign that they're going inward and they're creating, like I always talk about, I always like to use water analogies, like a marsh, that's the water is very stagnant and very muddy and murky, and there's like layers upon layers of sedimentation. Well, that's how I describe what happens to us when we're kids, or what we can do to our kids unconsciously, is every one of those examples is just another layer of that sedimentation that builds upon builds, where they are feeling unworthy, not enough, unlovable. And then then you want to know why they either become rebellious, turn to any kind of substitute to numb out the pain that they feel from not feeling worthy from within, or they go the route of becoming a people pleaser, perfectionist, or like for me, I was like the superstar child, you know what I mean? You fall into some kind of role to protect. You wear the masks to protect because you can't be your true self. And that's what we're teaching them when we say, what's wrong with you for getting the eggshell in there? It is a big deal. So I just want to like highlight that and underscore that.
Yeah, and I always, go back, how was that parent treated as a child when they got the
Yeah.
eggshell? Exactly
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
And those things fester, and we don't even know they come out in our own parenting. And so anytime we are triggered by an eggshell or anything, that is our opportunity. That's
Yes.
our oopsie. That is
Yes.
our oopsie to turn that into opportunity. Like, whoa, why did an eggshell just make me crazy? I
Yes.
am going to go reflect on that later
Yeah.
tonight or whenever. One thing that, as you were sharing that example, okay, so timeouts. Um, Again, that falls into the role of punishments. And so when a child has made a mistake, we send them away from us. And we are telling them that you are only worthy of my presence when you are good, when you are good in my eyes. And woof, there's a lot of unintended consequences there. So timeouts are just not a good idea, because when our kid makes a mistake, that's when we want to let them know, hey, you are still worthy of my presence. I will always love you. And this is what true love is, being able to be in that discomfort with them or whatever, but not sending them away. Like, you are unworthy of me now. And, come back later when you are.
When you know how to behave.
Ah, yeah.
I love that you brought that example in again. There was one that I also did when my kids were little, because I didn't have the awareness, right? We don't know what we don't know. And that's why I love that you're doing this work. I love anyone that's out there that's changing the paradigm for how we parent, because it's so important that we shift this. I mean, it is what it is. I didn't have this at my fingertips when they were little. And certainly, no one wanted to be a better mom than I did. I chose to give up my teaching career to be a mom. So it was really important to me that I be the best mom, which is why I read, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and all those other books, but I wasn't getting the quote right information, or the information that I really needed, which was to heal me from within so that I could show up differently. Well, actually, it's what you're saying. It's both sides of the hand. Like, I didn't have either or.
And I think I think it's so important to recognize most parents have read all the books,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's the parent reparenting ourselves or parenting our kids. And it is hard to implement. Even if you've read 100 books, it is really hard to implement the strategies on the dime.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have a mentor. You know, we go to
Yes.
college and we learn these high level skills no matter what we choose to do, and we always have a mentor, even not college, a plumber, any worthy career choice, we always have a
Have a
mentor. And
mentor.
why is parenting not the same? It is the most important job, the hardest job,
Yeah.
and our society thinks we should know it. Once you pop that kid out, you should have all the answers. And
Mm.
it's very shameful to raise your hand and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I am doing, and I need help, and I need someone to hold my hand and help me through this. Um,
Yeah, totally.
Getting that mentor makes such a difference. You get to your goals, to that peace within yourself and for your
Yeah.
kids much, much quicker. And the thing that's, I have to refer a lot of families out to counseling because patterns are so ingrained, that reactivity that as parents do, and then our kids react also. And that's like, okay, that's no longer within the realm of cooking with our kids. There's some
Yeah.
intense interventions that need to happen
Yes.
by that 0 to 6 age. Patterns aren't so ingrained, and we can really develop those foundations of trust, communication, cooperation, and connection um, before things, kind of fall apart.
Yes. Well, I just want to also say again, I'm so grateful for the work you're doing. It's amazing. I think it's so important. Again, the age that you're targeting, 0 to 6, is so important, as you just said. And I just love what you're putting out there into the world. So as we round out, I guess I would just ask, is there, and you've given so many tips or takeaways, you just gave one just now, but if there's like one parting thought that you want to leave the listeners with, do you have one?
You know, just be curious and really turn those oopsies into opportunities.
Mm,
Connect and grow with your kiddo, to teach, connect and grow with your kiddo. If we can just do that, we don't take it personal.
yeah.
When our kiddo puts the eggshell in or brings home a bad grade or whatever, we don't have to take it as our own parenting grade. We can just be like, interesting. Let's go deeper here, because it's not about us.
Yeah.
We're part of the equation for sure, but it's not about us. We're just there to support our kids, be curious with them, give them the tools they need. And yeah, parenting, I think we make it harder on ourselves than we need to.
Yeah.
And also love is not enough. So we also need to grow. So it's this tricky, but if we can be curious, then we're inspired to grow. And we
Yes.
don't um yeah, we don't feel as much shame and guilt and resistance to that. So
I love all of your C's: curiosity, communication, cooperation, and connection with our children. So there's 5 C's right there. I love that.
ding, there's another one.
And one more? And
Okay.
cooking and cooking. Oh my goodness. Yeah, C's is it for you. That's your alliteration for the day. Meagan, this was such an awesome conversation. I think it was such an important conversation. I felt like, in terms of C's, I felt like I really connected with you. I felt like it was a very inspiring conversation to have. So thank you so much for being here. And if someone wants to find you, where can they find you?
Yes, thank you for having me. Meagan Duncan, Connected Kids Thrive. That is my, and Connected Kids Thrive community is my Facebook community, and that's where I do most of my work. So, and of
So
course,
that's
I'm on Instagram and TikTok and all of that. But
okay, perfect. And your Facebook community is a free Facebook community for listeners?
it is.
Okay,
Yep.
so I will have all that in the show notes. I will include in the show notes where people can find you on social media as well.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Masks Off. This was such an awesome conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And as always, if you did love it, I would love for a like, comment, or subscribe. Until next week.